Howdy Hivescum and welcome back. It does feel like an awful long time since we had an official Games Workshop release for Necromunda. Things have gone a little bit too quiet. We've been very spoiled and very lucky over the years, so thank you to Games Workshop for the support that we've had for Necromunda this far. However, I've felt for quite a while now that, I wasn't really sure where things were going. I've made a number of different videos on sort of hypothesizing what might be in the future of Necromunda. We looked at some of the original slides from back when the re-release happened of, the vision for the long-term plan, and the roadmap seems to have gone fairly dead at this point. However, Mr. Valrak, whether you watch his channel or not, has talked recently about rumor, I think that's how he says it, of a new Necromunda reissue or re-release. And I thought it was probably a good time to talk about this because a lot of people in the 40k community and the Necromunda community are now going to be talking about this. Everybody's popping off in my Discord about this since this was announced. Well, it's not announced, it's just a rumor, of course, and it's Valrak, so you could take it with a pinch of salt. But I think there's probably some truth in it. Recently, I've been toing and froing whether I go back and do all of my gang guides from 4 years ago, but I just feel there's something round the corner. I think we can all admit that something is happening, something's in the works because it's just too quiet. Now, obviously, we've got the 40k 11th edition really soon, next month probably, and it would be a silly time to release anything major for Necromunda so close to 11th edition. However, I do think that we are due a little bit of a refresh on Necromunda. I'm going to talk about some of the sort of thoughts and feelings I have about the current state of Necromunda, and hopefully many people in the community will sort of agree with me and this will resonate with you a little bit. But let's just start with what Valrak is saying. There's a few keywords that we want to go through here, and some of them are a little bit worrying. So according to him, there is going to be a full reset of Necromunda, pretty much. This involves new Goliaths and Escher in a box set. So, take that with a pinch of salt, of course. The other word that was used that was very alarming, that worried everybody, was bland. Now, define bland, okay? Using the word bland to describe Necromunda is definitely something we wouldn't normally associate with Necromunda, as it is full of character and depth and flavor. Does this mean, worryingly, that we're going to get a much more stripped back version of the game? Is it going to be overly simplified? Is it going to be similar to Warcry or Kill Team, perhaps, which are both very good games in their own right, but they are very, very different and have very different communities and different reasons for wanting to play those games. Bland could just mean the new starter set is just kind of pulling things back a little bit and simplifying things, and honestly, this is not something I necessarily have a problem with, and making something more simple doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be less good. In terms of Escher and Goliath, quickly, I do honestly feel, and I think many people will agree with me on this, that those two gangs in particular, as well as perhaps Orlok, in fact, most of the house gangs are due an aesthetic refresh. I am personally not a fan of the Escher models and haven't been since they got re-released. I love the old Jez Goodwin ones. They were far less slutty. The new ones have high heels and very weird small faces, and I just don't like the aesthetic generally. And I think they need redoing. They're showing their age now. It has been a few years since we had them out. I personally really like the Goliath models, but again, I do feel like compared to a lot of the other Games Workshop miniatures that come out these days, the design is a bit lacking, I suppose. So there's that too. And again, with Orloks and some of the other house gangs, it's been a long time since we got any sort of progression in terms of how they look and feel and stuff. I think for a long time, a lot of people have said that they expect to get champion boxes, champion and Juve boxes, like we have with the Enforcers and the Squats for each of the house gangs. That is something that could perhaps be on the cards, but I think what's probably going to happen is that Games Workshop do hit the reset button and we do get a new edition of the game. The current state of Necromunda for me is that the community has obviously kept it alive between 1995 up until the re-release very successfully. It is an incredibly passionate community that I'm very humbled to be a part of, And I don't think Games Workshop are going to commit ritual suicide by just ruining the game and making it Kill Team 2.0. I just don't think that's going to happen. However, I do think that a lot of the mechanics for the game could be streamlined, I suppose. I wasn't going to say simplified, I was going to say streamlined. I do feel like perhaps I'm a bit jaded because I've played too many games. I've played probably thousands of games of Necromunda in my life now, so I'm spoiled really. But I do feel that sometimes the core mechanics of the game can be a bit laborious and a bit too chunky, and sometimes it's not that cinematic playing Necromunda. It can be quite a process rolling a lot of dice, rolling to hit, rolling your ammo dice, rolling your ammo check, rolling to wound, rolling to save, pinning, injury dice. It's a lot. And then we've got skills on top of that. You've got weapon traits on top of that. It is an awful lot of stuff to get through. And I think for new players coming into it now, a lot of those sort of details can be a little bit off-putting, to be honest. I also think that there's just too much stuff almost. And it's like, maybe, you know, I'm spoiled here, but there is just almost too much to Necromunda. It's across too many books, as we know. I see many people complaining about the wealth of books that they own, but, you know, it is what it is. So I think here's the part where I start sort of figuring out what I'd like to see Games Workshop do with Necromunda and what we can expect to see and where that sort of crosses over a little bit. Firstly, I'd like to see things... I would like to see a bit of a shake-up of the mechanics. I think melee in particular, I said it right that time, guys, is something that has started out well and was intended well when Necromunda was released, because you had two gangers fighting each other. It was a little bit back and forth and it kind of worked. But what happened is bloat happened and we ended up with Dramatis Personae and super champions like Death Maidens and Stimmers just one-shotting everybody. And that, let's be honest, it's just not very fun. And I think the overall close combat mechanics in Necromunda are something that I've talked about at length, could be a lot better, and I would be perfectly happy with a complete overhaul of this. The other thing that I've talked about at length now is, and I think a lot of people who played 95 Necromunda will agree with me on this as well, the paramilitary feel of Necromunda is not in essence of Necromunda anymore. It's lost some of its heart due to the just amount of equipment and weapons and stuff that you can get. And, you know, every house gang is now not just a ganger with a knife and a stub gun. It is, you know, with a few creds in their pocket, it is now just a full-blown army with brutes and everything. And it's just a bit much, quite honestly. And it no longer feels like Necromunda to me as much. You know, I still love it, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be too harsh here, but it just has lost some of its original soul, I think. So I would like to see things stripped back, and I don't want every gang with a plasma gun or a web gun. I want things to be costed properly as well in that regard. It's interesting because if you compare the original re-release, so 2017, 2018, when we had the Escher versus Goliath on the cardboard tile set, the game... You know, as much as most people were very apprehensive about playing 2D on tiles, was really, really solid, if you ask me. I thought the core mechanics in general were great. The feel of the game, it felt like Necromunda, but, you know, made more modern, I suppose. And those tiles were flipping great. I use them all the time, even now. They are a really nice way to play Necromunda if you just don't want to faff around with all the terrain. I know that terrain is the sort of core of Necromunda, but I do feel that that was a really nice way to play as well. And I think all in all, it just felt much more contained and much more simplified. And again, sort of in line with how Necromunda used to feel a little bit more. Whereas now, you know, moving on a few years, it's been nearly 10 years now, the game is an overcomplicated mess at the best of times. Now, I could keep going on about all the little nitty-gritty of how I feel about Necromunda, but again, it's a personal journey. Everybody's going to feel differently about it, but one thing is for certain, the community will be in absolute uproar if things are changed too much. And I honestly don't think Games Workshop are just going to go and ruin it for everybody. It's clearly Andy Hoare's baby. He loves this game, and I can tell that they've put a lot of love and time and enthusiasm into Necromunda over the years. It's not going anywhere, guys. It's not just going to be dropped. We're probably going to get a new box set. Is it going to be a new starter set, or is it going to be a full redo of the game? I think maybe the answer lies in perhaps a little bit of both. I think we're going to get a new starter set for sure, because we're due it, and Secundus, let's be honest, didn't really scratch that itch for a lot of new players. The setting was amazing, and they've done, frankly, nothing with it, which is a bit of a shame. Ash Wastes before that, again, didn't really hit right. The vehicle rules were, I think, pretty terrible. Get rid of the vehicle dice. We don't need them. There are other ways to make vehicles great in games, and that wasn't it, if you ask me. So shout out to Valrak for this, awesome accent, by the way, mate. I watch you for your accent mainly. But, again, you can take a lot of these things, these rumors, with a pinch of salt, but usually there's some truth in it, and I do feel like we have something coming very, very soon, at least in terms of being announced, and it's very hard to say what that's going to be. But again, I reiterate, I do think that Necromunda needs a shake-up, and I do think that there are a few things about the game that need addressing, and those are the things that I've talked about already here. Anyway, this is quite a complex subject. I'd love to know in the comments what you think about this, your thoughts and fears. But overall, guys, I am super positive about this. I'm always positive about this because I love this game. Anything that I get for Necromunda, I'm going to be happy about. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just more of the stuff that I love. So how could I not be positive about that? It's like, more ice cream, great, it's just, you can't be negative about this too much, okay? So I do think there's definitely, something good coming. So I'd love to know in the comments what you think about this. Tell me your thoughts and fears. Tell me your predictions, most importantly, as well. Your rumors, if you've heard any. What you'd like to see in perhaps a new edition or a new starter set for Necromunda. What things you'd like Games Workshop to address in terms of the rules and stuff. I mean, another thing, again, I haven't talked about this yet, but the hired guns and Dramatis Personae, what a mess. We've got half of them without miniatures, and the other half are just useless and you're never going to use them. Fantastic models, but you're just not using them in your games, are you? If you're not in my Discord, make sure to jump into the Discord. I've got 300 members and I only opened it up last week, so it's pretty good. We've got some great guys in there talking all sorts of banter, so please do join the Discord. I'll put the link in this video as well. Anyway, don't be too doom and gloom about this. I think there's definitely a lot to look forward to, and, let's just wait and see what happens when we get any news on Necromunda, and I will come back and address any of that as soon as it happens. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to jump in the Discord, jump in the Facebook, jump on a Patreon, like, share, subscribe, do all of that stuff, and most importantly, up the wires. Peace out.